Hello, Jenny Hall here for Honeybee Stamps. Today I'd like to show you my method for painted die cuts. I'm using some new products from Honeybee Stamps' new release, and the first up is an oval stencil and mask set. I'm also going to be creating with spring bouquet dies, and it's just a die set of the ability to make flowers. And then the In Bloom stamp set has the most gorgeous sentiments, so we're going to use one of those sentiments as well. Let's start out by creating an area directly on the card base that's going to serve as a background for the die cut flowers. So I've used some Post-it tape that is available in the Honeybee store, and I'm taping that stencil in place because there are some open areas on the side. There are two larger dies in this, or two larger stencil pieces in the set, and they are standalone pieces, but this one is small enough to let other pieces on the page with it, so I thought Post-it tape would be perfect to mask off those areas. Now I'm using two light colors of Distress Oxide ink to kind of give a different variation, somewhere for the eye to rest on where the die cut flowers are. So I'm just using the tulip pieces. There are many different ways to make many different flowers, but today I'm just using tulips. And there are dies to make two different tulip flowers, as you can see. Now I use my Gemini Junior die cut machine, so that was the metallic or the magnetic plate that you saw there. The first thing I like to do is to place the die cuts right back into the piece they were cut from. This is going to help hold everything together in one place. Otherwise, I find that when I put my finger on the die cut, it's going to take some of the paint away, or I can use my pokey tool from my Tim Holtz craft pick, I think is what it's called. I call it pokey tool. And I can use that, but it also leaves a mark. However, if I just place them right back in where I cut them away from, then it's a hands-free way. Now, it's not without its little pieces falling away sometimes, or, you know, that like here you can see that the tulip, I used too much pressure on the water brush and it kind of slid out of place. So it's not foolproof, but nothing is foolproof, and this works really well for me. So I'm going to use Distress Oxide inks to watercolor because I haven't done that in a really long time, and they watercolor very nicely. I've got all the Distress Oxide colors, so why not use them? And it kind of gives a chalky look to the finished product, which I'm totally okay with. It gives that, I guess I should say it's a matte look that it gives. So because this is watercolor paper and I have the ability to really let those colors move around on the paper, then I just started off with 3 different greens on the leaves. And once they're wet, then I just kind of blobbed on some color in different areas, and it starts mixing together really pretty. Now everything is colored here, but in order to give a little bit more definition, I decided to go back with just a wet brush, and this would be the water brush here. I'm not picking up additional paint that's the same color. And then I take away some of that color, wicking it away from the edges. You can see here with the tulip that it just moves some of the color away. On a few of the pieces, I decided to use the lightest green, which is that cracked pistachio, and add it to the bottom area, and that's going to give a variation in color to that particular part of the tulip. The bigger pieces are going to be the back piece of the tulip, and then the spear-shaped is going to lay on top of the other die cut. And I don't want all of it to be just one color. I want there to be one of them darker and then the other lighter. So I thought it would be easier to have the back part of the tulip be darker and then have the front piece, or that spear-shaped petal, to be the lighter of the two. And then here's one of them where I actually put just a little bit of green and kept it in a diagonal sideways, just because I want it to not appear just like everything else. And to give that green that is already dried a little help blending together a little more smoothly, I'm just taking the wet brush and just brushing over it, and it activated everything up nicely. Now I want to give a little bit of a speckled look to all of the die cut pieces. And so I've added just a little piece or a little dab of white acrylic paint, and I diluted it down with some water from the water brush, picked it up with the water brush, and now I'm flicking the end against the cap of the water brush, and it's going to give just that really subtle white that kind of fades into the petals. Putting the pieces together was so easy to use some double-sided foam tape, and I kind of tried to stick to making sure that I used the right dies together. I'm just guessing because we could actually make them look any way that we like. Because when you're working with die cuts in this manner, everything is so customizable. Now I'm going to start piling up some of these die cut units, and I thought it would be interesting just to throw the leaves in very wonky and not have them appear like coming up from a certain side. And then before I adhere them, I thought it would be great to reuse that foam tape, reuse the Post-it tape that I used earlier to pick up both of the pieces, all of them together, and then adhering some liquid glue on the back, I can put them right back down and they're going to stay in place. Sometimes whenever I take the step of putting everything in one space and auditioning it, then I change things whenever I glue them down. But this way, if I really like the way they're positioned, using some kind of low-tack tape, or you can use some Glad Press and Seal, then it keeps everything together in one spot. It just keeps it together how I originally wanted to do it. So this is going to be a grouping or a bunch of tulips that are here over the oval. And I wasn't sure how I wanted to place the sentiment. And it's really great that this stamp set in Full Bloom has the most beautiful font. There are some very, very gorgeous sentiments in that set. And so I thought maybe if I did it on black, it would really help to stand out. And then I thought about fussy cutting. Just sometimes there's way too many choices. And I started getting just a little bit overwhelmed with my choices of the sentiment, which is kind of silly, but it just, with all of the COVID stuff, I'm having a hard time finding time just to craft and make my videos. So I thought this would be just one way to make things more simple. So I took a strip of black cardstock, and I'm just going to throw a strip across the middle underneath those tulips and let that be the place the sentiment is going to lay. My nerves are a little bit frayed when I made this video, and so it's not a big surprise that I took all the extra steps I could to make sure my embossed sentiment came out nice. But then here it is. I touched the end of the heat gun down to the freshly embossed piece of paper, and it's smeared. So here is my repair job with a Sharpie marker and a Micron permanent pen. And it works good enough. And I want to stress to everybody that, these are handmade cards, and it's not supposed to look absolutely perfect. It's supposed to look like you made it and it comes from the heart. So this is something that I feel important. It's important to me. And sometimes just getting something started and getting something finished is the best we can do, and that's okay. It's okay, especially in times where, things are a little bit out of the ordinary. So I used a little bit of the double-sided foam tape, and I just added that sentiment right across the front here, and I think it works out okay. Now I'm using some Candlelight Confetti mix. This is like a flat sequin, and it also has these little pieces that are like diamonds, and I thought I'd use a mix of both. I hope you are all staying safe and staying home and healthy during this coronavirus craziness that has taken over our planet. And I send out my warm wishes from Honeybee Stamps to you. We hope that you stay safe at home during the quarantine. And we're sending out much love and hugs and kisses. So here is this card, and I want to share another card that I created with In Full Bloom. And this was made with some watercolors, some really fun look. Thanks for watching with us today. And if you want to connect more, we have a group on Facebook, and we have lots of projects we share on Instagram.